It's hard to believe it's already been a year since my family was ripped apart. 1 year since I woke up in that hospital bed, confused and shattered, with no clue how I got there or what happened to my parents. Sometimes, when I close my eyes, I can still smell the antiseptic tang of the hospital room, the sterile scent clinging to everything like an invisible shroud. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows on the walls as I blinked against their glare. A nurse hovered nearby, her voice soft but distant, explaining things I couldn't process. Words like accident and investigation floated around me, but none of it made sense. All I knew was that Mom and Dad weren't there, and neither was Sophia. Reporters and news outlets came out of the woodwork after that night, offering big bucks to get my story. They camped outside our house for weeks, shoving microphones into my face every time I stepped onto the porch. Their questions were relentless. What happened? Do you remember anything? How does it feel to lose your parents so suddenly? But I turned them all down. What was the point? How could I explain something I didn't even understand myself? My therapist keeps pushing me to face what happened. She says talking about it might help quiet the nightmares that keep dragging me back to that night. Night after night, I find myself standing over Karen and Michael's bed in those dreams, gripping something heavy in my hands. At first, I don't know what it is, but then it becomes clear, and it terrifies me. The worst part is, I can't tell if these dreams are just my mind playing tricks on me or if they're fragments of real memories trying to surface. But now, as I sit here staring at Sophia's old diary, I'm wondering if this is where the answers have been hiding all along. Maybe if I dig deep enough into her words, I can finally figure out what really went down that night, and why everything fell apart. Before the tragedy, we were a normal, if not slightly chaotic, family. My mom, Karen, worked long hours as a nurse practitioner at the local hospital, always coming home smelling faintly of hand sanitizer and coffee. She had a habit of humming show tunes under her breath while cooking dinner, though more often than not, she'd burn whatever she was making because she was distracted by phone calls from work. My dad, Michael, was quieter, preferring to tinker in the garage or read books about history late into the night. He had a dry sense of humor that would catch you off guard, leaving you laughing until your sides hurt. Together, they balanced each other out, one loud and nurturing, the other calm and steady. And then there was Sophia. She was only 16 when everything changed, but even then, she carried herself with an air of quiet wisdom far beyond her years. Sophia had always been the glue holding us together. While Mom and Dad worked late nights, she'd sit cross-legged on my bedroom floor, sketching doodles in her notebook as we whispered secrets under the covers. Her sketches were wild and imaginative, entire worlds drawn in pen and ink, filled with fantastical creatures and sprawling landscapes. She once told me that drawing helped her escape the chaos of real life, and I think I understood what she meant. For me, it was music. I spent hours practicing guitar in the basement, losing myself in chords and melodies whenever things got too overwhelming upstairs. Looking back, I realized there were cracks forming beneath the surface long before that night. Sophia and I used to joke about how Mom and Dad seemed to live separate lives, orbiting each other without ever truly connecting. There were arguments behind closed doors, hushed voices carrying through the hallway late at night. Once, I overheard Mom yelling about money, something about mounting bills and credit card debt, but I never asked questions. It wasn't until later that I pieced together how much stress they were under. And Sophia, well, Sophia noticed everything. That's why her diary feels so important now. If anyone knew what was really going on inside our family, it was her. Therapy has become both a lifeline and a battleground. Dr. Patel sits across from me in her cozy office, her expression calm but probing. Every session feels like walking a tightrope between confronting the truth and running away from it. Last week, she asked me to describe one of my recurring dreams in detail. I hesitated, unsure if I wanted to put words to the images haunting me. But eventually, I relented. I'm standing in my parents' bedroom, I began, my voice barely above a whisper. It's dark, except for the moonlight streaming through the window. I can see their faces clearly, they're asleep, peaceful. And then, my throat tightened, and I paused to take a shaky breath. I'm holding something. Something heavy. At first, I don't know what it is, but then I look down, and I see, it's a lamp. Or maybe it's a rock. I can't tell. All I know is that my hands are shaking, and I feel this rage. This anger I don't understand. Dr. Patel nodded thoughtfully. And what happens next? Nothing, I admitted. I wake up before anything happens. But it feels so real. Like it's not just a dream. Like it's a memory trying to break through. She leaned forward slightly. Do you think it's possible you're remembering something from that night? The question hung in the air between us, heavy and unanswerable. I wanted to say no, to insist that my subconscious was simply conjuring horrors to punish me for surviving. But deep down, I wasn't sure. The nightmares felt too vivid, too specific. They left me drenched in sweat, heart pounding, convinced that I'd done something terrible. Before everything changed, Sophia was the kind of person who lit up every room she entered. She had this magnetic energy that drew people to her, whether it was her teammates cheering her on during lacrosse games or her classmates laughing at her witty remarks in class. At 14, she already seemed destined for greatness. Her coach called her a once-in-a-generation player, and her teachers praised her ability to balance academics with extracurriculars without breaking a sweat. Sophia wasn't just talented, she was driven. She practiced lacrosse every day after school, rain or shine, perfecting her shots until her arms ached. On weekends, she'd spend hours sketching designs for costumes or creating elaborate storyboards for projects no one else even thought about tackling. She once told me that she wanted to be remembered, not just as someone who played sports well or got good grades, but as someone who left a mark on the world. I want to do something big, she said, her eyes sparkling with determination. Something that matters. When Mom and Dad finally let her move into the third-floor bedroom, it felt like a coronation. That room had always been special, it was bigger than any of the others, with large windows overlooking the backyard and enough space for all her trophies, books, and artwork. For years, Sophia had begged them to let her take it, but they insisted it wasn't practical until she proved she could handle the responsibility. When they finally relented, it was a moment of triumph, not just for Sophia, but for all of us. We celebrated with pizza and ice cream, watching as she rearranged furniture late into the night, giggling about how she'd decorate the walls with fairy lights and posters. At first, everything seemed perfect. She spent hours organizing her new space, lining shelves with her favorite novels and sketchbooks. She even invited me up one afternoon to show off her handiwork. Look, she said, spinning around with arms wide open. It's like my own little castle. And for a while, it really did feel like hers, a sanctuary where she could dream big and plan her future. But looking back now, I wonder if moving into that room marked the beginning of something darker. Was it too much pressure? Too much isolation? Or was it simply coincidence that her downward spiral began shortly after? I didn't notice the changes right away. At first, it seemed like nothing more than typical teenage moodiness. She started sleeping in later, missing her alarm so often that Karen ended up driving her to school almost every morning. I teased her about it once, joking that she was turning into a vampire. She laughed, but it didn't reach her eyes. Something about her smile felt off. Then came the clothes. Sophia had always been meticulous about her appearance, choosing outfits that matched her bold personality. But suddenly, she stopped caring. She wore the same hoodie and jeans day after day, barely glancing in the mirror before heading downstairs. When I asked her about it, she shrugged and muttered something about laundry being a hassle. But I knew better. This wasn't laziness, it was apathy. Her appetite disappeared next. Plates of food would sit untouched on the counter, and her favorite snacks gathered dust in the pantry. One evening, I found her sitting at the kitchen table, staring blankly at a bowl of cereal she hadn't touched. "You okay?" I asked softly. She nodded but didn't say anything. Her silence scared me more than anything else. By the time she quit the lacrosse team, it was clear something was seriously wrong. The girl who used to sprint across the field with boundless energy now avoided even stepping outside. Her friends stopped calling, and soon, she hardly left her room at all. It was like watching a light dim slowly, flickering until it went out completely. The hardest part was seeing how disconnected she became, not just from us, but from herself. She stopped drawing, stopped writing, stopped doing all the things that used to make her happy. Once, I knocked on her door and asked if she wanted to hang out. She mumbled a vague excuse about being tired and closed the door in my face. After that, I stopped trying. I told myself it was because she needed space, but deep down, I think I was afraid of what I might find if I pushed too hard. Looking through Sophia's diary now, I see glimpses of what might have been troubling her. Some entries are mundane, notes about homework assignments or plans with friends, but others hint at deeper struggles. September 12th. Everyone says high school will be amazing, but it's not. It's exhausting. I feel like I'm pretending all the time, smiling when I want to scream. October 5th. Coach said I need to focus more during practice. What does she know? She doesn't see how hard I'm trying. Sometimes I wish I could disappear. There are also references to things she never mentioned aloud. November 20th. Heard Mom crying last night. Dad yelled again. Why do they think I don't notice? These snippets paint a picture of a girl carrying burdens far heavier than anyone realized. But they also raise questions. What exactly was she hiding? And why didn't she tell anyone? One entry stands out above the rest, a hastily scribbled note dated just days before the tragedy. May 7th. I can't keep pretending everything's okay. Something bad is going to happen. I can feel it. If anything goes wrong, look for the key. It's where it's always been. The key? What key? The entry ended abruptly, leaving me staring at the blank space below it. I reread it several times, trying to decipher its meaning. Did Sophia mean a literal key? Or was it some kind of metaphor? Either way, it felt significant, a clue pointing toward answers I desperately needed. Karen and Michael tried to address Sophia's behavior, but their efforts only seemed to make things worse. At first, they dismissed her changes as typical teenage rebellion. She'll grow out of it, Dad said one evening, flipping through the newspaper without looking up. But as her withdrawal deepened, they grew increasingly frustrated. One night, I overheard them arguing in the kitchen. We can't keep ignoring this, Karen snapped, her voice trembling. She's not okay, Michael. We need to do something. And what do you suggest? He shot back. Take her to therapy. She won't even talk to us anymore. Their fights became more frequent, adding to the tension in the house. Meanwhile, I felt paralyzed, unsure how to bridge the growing distance between us. I wanted to help Sophia, but every attempt felt futile. Mom eventually convinced Sophia to see a therapist, though she refused to go more than twice. It's useless, she muttered afterward, slamming her bedroom door shut. I don't know what happened in those sessions, but whatever it was, it didn't seem to help. Instead, she retreated further into herself, spending hours alone in her room with the blinds drawn. Dad tried a different approach, grounding her and taking away privileges in an effort to snap her out of it. But punishment only made things worse. She stopped speaking to him altogether, retreating into a shell of silence that none of us could penetrate. As I continue reading through Sophia's diary, certain entries stand out more than others. One in particular sends chills down my spine. April 22nd. I don't know how much longer I can keep this secret. They're getting closer. If they find out, everything will fall apart. Who is they? What secret was she protecting? Each entry raises more questions than it answers, pulling me deeper into the mystery of what happened that night. I decide to search her room again, hoping to find whatever she might have been referring to. Underneath her mattress, tucked inside an old shoebox, I discover a small brass key attached to a faded ribbon. My pulse quickens as I hold it in my hand. Where does it lead? And what secrets was Sophia trying to protect? The discovery leaves me uneasy. Whatever Sophia was hiding, it must have been important enough to risk everything for. As I stare at the key, I can't shake the feeling that it holds the answer to everything, that it's the missing piece of the puzzle I've been searching for all along. Karen sat at the kitchen table late one night, staring blankly at a cup of tea that had long gone cold. Her hands trembled slightly as she traced the rim of the mug, lost in thought. Across from her, Michael flipped through bills with a frustrated sigh. Neither of them spoke, they didn't need to. The silence between them was heavy enough. I don't know what else to do, Karen finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. We've tried everything. Michael set the papers down and rubbed his temples. Maybe we missed something. Maybe there's still a way to fix this. But both of them knew better. Fixing things wasn't going to be easy, not when Sophia refused to let them in. They'd searched her room countless times, looking for evidence of drugs or any clue that might explain her behavior. All they found were cryptic notes scrawled in the margins of her textbooks and half-finished sketches that seemed darker than anything she'd ever drawn before. At first, they clung to the hope that it was just a phase, that teenage rebellion would run its course, and Sophia would come back to them. But now, as weeks turned into months, that hope began to fade. Every unanswered question gnawed at them, every slammed door felt like another nail in the coffin of their once happy family. One night, after yet another fruitless attempt to talk to Sophia, Karen broke down in tears. "What did we do wrong?" she sobbed, clutching Michael's arm. "Why won't she trust us?" Michael didn't have an answer. Instead, he held her close, feeling the same despair creeping into his chest. Somewhere along the line, they'd lost their daughter, and neither of them knew how to get her back. I couldn't shake the memory of seeing Sophia outside Karen and Michael's bedroom that night. She stood frozen in the hallway, her eyes wide with panic, holding whatever it was so tightly that her fingers turned white. When she noticed me watching her, her expression shifted, from fear to fury in an instant. "Stay out of this," she snapped, her voice low but venomous. Then she bolted upstairs, leaving me standing there alone, my heart pounding. Part of me wanted to follow her, to demand answers, to force her to tell me what was going on. But another part of me was too afraid. Afraid of what she might say. Afraid of what I might find if I pushed too hard. The accusation she hurled at Karen during their fight replayed in my mind over and over again: "You always loved her more." Was it true? Had I unknowingly been the favored child all along? The thought made me sick to my stomach. I loved Sophia, she was my sister, my best friend, but lately, it felt like she hated me. Like I represented everything she resented about our family. I tried talking to her once, sitting on the floor outside her locked door. "Sophia, please," I begged, my voice cracking. "Just tell me what's wrong. Let me help you." She didn't respond. Not even a sound from inside her room. Eventually, I gave up and walked away, tears streaming down my face. It wasn't fair, none of it was. We used to share everything, laugh about anything. Now, it felt like we were strangers living under the same roof. In the privacy of her diary, Sophia poured out her darkest thoughts. March 28th. I hate them. I hate all of them. Why can't they leave me alone? Don't they see I'm trying to protect them? If they keep pushing, they'll ruin everything. April 1st. Sometimes I think about running away. Just packing a bag and disappearing forever. Would anyone even notice? Or would they be relieved? Her entries grew increasingly frantic as the days passed. April 10th. They're watching me now. Always watching. Waiting for me to slip up. I can't let them find it. If they do, everything will fall apart. What was it? What secret was she guarding so fiercely? Each entry hinted at something bigger, something dangerous. Whatever it was, it consumed her completely, leaving no room for anything else. On the rare occasions she ventured out of her room, she moved like a ghost, quiet, distant, unreachable. Once, I caught her staring out the window, her face pale and hollow. For a brief moment, our eyes met, and I saw it, the flicker of someone drowning, desperate for air but unable to ask for help. The argument started over something small, a forgotten chore or a misplaced item. But within minutes, it spiraled out of control. "You never listen to me," Sophia screamed, her voice shaking with rage. "You act like I'm some kind of problem that needs fixing. Well, guess what? I'm not your problem anymore." Karen stepped forward, reaching for her. "Sophia, stop this. You're scaring everyone." "Good." Sophia spat. "Maybe you'll finally pay attention to me instead of pretending everything's fine." Michael intervened, his tone sharp. "That's enough. Go to your room." "No!" Sophia shouted, her fists clenched at her sides. "Why should I? So you can snoop around in my stuff again? So you can pretend you care while you tear apart everything I own?" Tears streamed down Karen's face as she pleaded, "We're doing this because we love you. Can't you see that? Love me?" Sophia laughed bitterly. "If you loved me, you'd stay out of my life. You'd stop treating me like I'm broken." The room fell silent except for Sophia's ragged breathing. Then, without warning, she grabbed a vase from the side table and hurled it across the room. It shattered against the wall, shards scattering everywhere. For the first time, I saw real fear in Karen's eyes, not just for herself, but for all of us. Something had snapped inside Sophia, and none of us knew how to put it back together. After the fight, the house felt different, as if the walls themselves carried the weight of what had happened. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of curtains, sent shivers down my spine. Even the air seemed heavier, pressing down on us like an invisible hand. My parents decided to take Sophia to the hospital for an evaluation. "It's for her own good," Karen whispered, though I could hear the uncertainty in her voice. Michael nodded grimly, avoiding eye contact with either of us. Sophia didn't resist when they told her. Instead, she stared blankly ahead, her expression unreadable. It was almost worse than her anger, the emptiness in her eyes chilled me to the bone. That night, I lay awake in bed, listening to the silence. Something bad was coming. We all felt it, but none of us knew how to stop it. As I drifted off to sleep, one thought lingered in my mind: what happens if they find the key? That night started like any other, or so I thought. Dinner was quiet, strained. Karen pushed food around her plate without eating, her eyes red-rimmed from crying earlier. Michael barely touched his meal, muttering something about work under his breath. Neither of them looked at Sophia, who sat across the table, picking at her food with mechanical indifference. I tried to lighten the mood, cracking a joke about some silly thing that happened at school. For a split second, Karen smiled, a small, fleeting curve of her lips, but it vanished almost immediately. Sophia didn't react at all. She just stared at her plate, her expression unreadable. After dinner, I retreated to my room, hoping to escape the suffocating tension in the house. But even behind closed doors, I couldn't block out the sounds of their arguing. Karen's voice carried through the walls, sharp and accusatory. Michael responded in clipped tones, trying to keep his temper in check but failing miserably. Then I heard footsteps, soft, deliberate, outside my door. I froze, my heart pounding. When I opened it, Sophia stood there, her face pale and drawn, her eyes blazing with something I couldn't quite place. Hate? Fear? Desperation? You don't get it, she whispered, her voice trembling. None of you do. Before I could respond, she turned and walked away, disappearing into the shadows of the hallway. I wanted to follow her, to ask what she meant, but something held me back. Maybe it was instinct. Or maybe it was fear. Either way, I closed my door and tried to forget about it. But forgetting wasn't an option, not that night. What went through Sophia's mind in those final hours? Did she plan everything meticulously, or did she act on impulse, driven by emotions too overwhelming to contain? Her diary offers glimpses, though they're fragmented and cryptic. May 8th. I've made my decision. There's no other way. They won't understand, not now, not ever. If I tell them, they'll hate me. Better this way. May 9th. Last night, I dreamed about falling. It wasn't scary. It was peaceful. Like letting go of everything holding me down. Her last entry is the most haunting. May 10th. Tonight is the night. I'll make sure they pay for what they've done. And then, freedom. Was she talking about our parents? About herself? About someone else entirely? The answers remain elusive, buried beneath layers of pain and secrecy. In my imagination, I see her moving through the house like a ghost, silent, determined. She carries something heavy in her hands, though I can't tell what it is until it's too late. The knife glints in the moonlight as she enters Karen and Michael's bedroom. Their breathing is steady, unaware. Then comes the sound of steel slicing through flesh, followed by muffled screams that quickly fade into silence. When it's over, she climbs onto the windowsill of her third-floor room. For a moment, she hesitates, clutching the note tightly in her hand. Tears stream down her face as she whispers, "I'm sorry." Then she lets go. I don't remember much after seeing Sophia outside my door. Just flashes, broken images that refuse to form a coherent picture. I recall hearing raised voices downstairs, Karen screaming, Michael shouting back. Something crashes, a vase, maybe? The sound echoes through the house, sending shivers down my spine. I pull the covers over my head, trying to block it out, but the noise keeps coming. And then, nothing. Darkness. Silence. When I woke up, everything felt wrong. My head throbbed, and my vision swam in and out of focus. Bright lights blinded me, and the antiseptic smell of the hospital hit me like a punch to the gut. A man sat beside me, Detective Harris, he introduced himself. His face was grim, his tone measured as he explained what happened. "Your parents are gone," he said, pausing to let the words sink in. "They were found in their bedroom. Stabbed to death. Your sister, she jumped from her window. We found this note in her hand." He handed me a crumpled piece of paper. The words scrawled on it sent chills through me, "She had to die." Who was she? Why did Sophia write those words? Was she referring to me? Or someone else entirely? The uncertainty gnawed at me, tearing apart whatever fragile grasp I had on reality. The hospital room felt suffocating, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like an endless drone. Every movement hurt, my body ached, and my head felt like it might split open. Detective Harris watched me carefully, gauging my reactions as he spoke. "We're still piecing things together," he admitted, leaning forward slightly. "Your sister's note raises more questions than answers. Do you have any idea who she might refer to?" I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. "I don't know. I don't remember anything." He nodded sympathetically but pressed on. "Did your sister seem upset recently? Angry? Did she mention anyone specifically?" "She hated everyone," I blurted out, regretting the words as soon as they left my mouth. "No, not everyone. Just herself, I think. And maybe Mom and Dad. I don't know anymore." Harris scribbled notes in his pad, his expression unreadable. "We'll need to talk again once you're feeling better. In the meantime, try to rest." As he left, I stared at the ceiling, replaying his questions in my mind. Who was she? What had driven Sophia to such extremes? The answers eluded me, slipping through my fingers like smoke. Days passed in a blur of medication and half-formed thoughts. I couldn't shake the image of Sophia standing on the windowsill, her face streaked with tears. Had she really killed our parents? Or was there someone else involved, someone we hadn't considered? The note haunted me. She had to die. Over and over, I analyzed the words, searching for hidden meaning. Could she be Karen? Michael? Someone outside the family altogether? Each possibility seemed worse than the last. One day, as I sifted through Sophia's belongings, I discovered something tucked beneath her mattress, a photograph. It showed her smiling brightly, arm in arm with a girl I didn't recognize. On the back, written in Sophia's handwriting, were 2 words, "My secret." A chill ran down my spine. Who was this girl? And what role did she play in everything that happened? It was pure accident that I found it. Months had passed since I'd last stepped foot in Sophia's room, the place where everything had unraveled. I avoided it like a ghost town, too afraid of the memories lurking within. But that day, driven by some inexplicable urge, I pushed open the door and stepped inside. The air smelled stale, heavy with dust and neglect. Sunlight filtered weakly through the blinds, casting long shadows across the floor. My gaze swept over the familiar chaos, clothes strewn across the bed, books stacked haphazardly on the shelves, sketches pinned to the walls like faded echoes of her creativity. Then my eyes landed on the floorboards near the corner of the room. One of them was slightly raised, barely noticeable unless you were looking closely. Curiosity got the better of me. I knelt down and pried it loose, revealing a small hollow beneath. Inside lay a leather-bound journal, its cover worn and cracked from years of use. My breath caught in my throat. This wasn't just any book, it was Sophia's diary. For a moment, I hesitated. Was it wrong to invade her privacy like this? To dig into her most intimate thoughts without permission? But the pull was irresistible. If there were answers hidden here, if Sophia had left behind any clue to explain what drove her to such extremes, I needed to know. With trembling hands, I opened the first page. Her handwriting greeted me immediately, neat and precise at first, then gradually devolving into jagged scrawls as the entries progressed. Each word felt like stepping deeper into a labyrinth, one that promised no easy way out. The earliest entries radiated pure joy. Sophia couldn't contain her excitement about finally claiming the third-floor bedroom as her own. She wrote about redecorating it, taping fairy lights along the ceiling and hanging posters of her favorite bands on the walls. "It's perfect," she gushed in one entry. "Like my very own castle." She described spending hours organizing her belongings, arranging trophies and sketchbooks on the shelves with meticulous care. "I love being able to close the door and just breathe," she wrote. "No interruptions, no noise. Just me and my thoughts." There were lighter moments too, jokes about sneaking snacks upstairs, doodles of imagined conversations with celebrities, plans for future projects she wanted to tackle. Reading these pages made my chest ache. This was the Sophia I remembered, vibrant, ambitious, full of life. But even here, buried beneath the surface, were faint traces of unease. In one entry, she mentioned overhearing Karen and Michael arguing late at night. "They think I don't notice," she wrote, "but I do. Something's off. They're keeping secrets again." At the time, it seemed like typical teenage hyper-awareness. Now, knowing what came next, it felt like the first crack in the foundation. As the weeks went on, Sophia's tone began to shift. What started as playful musings turned darker, sharper. She fixated on small details, things I barely remembered happening but that clearly consumed her. I heard her talking on the phone today, she wrote in one entry. She thinks I don't listen, but I do. She's planning something. I can feel it. Her suspicions grew with each passing day. Conversations I'd assumed were harmless, catching up with friends, discussing school assignments, took on sinister undertones in her mind. Why does she always whisper when she talks to them? She demanded. What is she hiding? At first, I thought she was exaggerating, reading too much into innocent exchanges. But the more I read, the clearer it became that she genuinely believed I was plotting against her. Against our parents. She's turning them against me, she accused in another entry. Every little thing I do, she twists it into something bad. She makes them doubt me. Hate me. Each accusation hit me like a punch to the gut. Had I really been so oblivious? So blind to how my actions, or lack thereof, might have hurt her? Or was this all in her head, a product of paranoia spiraling out of control? By the time I reached her later entries, Sophia's handwriting had deteriorated into frantic scribbles, almost illegible in places. Her sentences fragmented, disjointed, as though she could barely keep up with her racing thoughts. I sit outside their door every night, she confessed. Clutching the knife, waiting for her to come. She won't take them away from me. Not while I'm still breathing. Her determination chilled me to the bone. Protecting Karen and Michael had become her sole mission, consuming her completely. She described sleepless nights, endless pacing, the weight of the weapon in her hands. I'm so tired, she admitted. But I can't stop. If I do, she'll win. The paranoia had transformed into outright delusion. She no longer saw me as a sister, she saw me as a monster, a threat to everything she held dear. And yet, despite her hatred, there was an undercurrent of sadness, a desperate longing for connection, for understanding. One entry stood out above the rest, written just days before the tragedy. I tried to tell them once. About how scared I am, how much I need them. But they didn't believe me. They never do. Maybe no one will ever understand. Maybe this is my only choice. Her pain was palpable, raw. It broke my heart and terrified me all at once. The final entry stopped me cold. If I don't stop her, she'll destroy us all. Those 7 words echoed in my mind long after I closed the diary. Who did Sophia think I was going to destroy? Our parents? Herself? Someone else entirely? The ambiguity gnawed at me, leaving me questioning everything I thought I knew about that night. Was I responsible, for planting seeds of doubt, for failing to reach out when she needed me most? Or was Sophia's perception entirely skewed, a tragic misinterpretation of reality? Sitting amidst the ruins of her room, clutching the diary in shaking hands, I realized something: the truth didn't matter anymore. Whatever Sophia believed, it had cost her everything. And now, it threatened to consume me too. Sophia wasn't the only one carrying resentment back then, I had my share too. My relationship with Michael was especially fraught during those months. He had this rigid vision of who I should become, mapping out my future like it belonged to him instead of me. You need to focus, he'd say, his tone sharp enough to cut glass. College applications don't write themselves. But all I wanted was a break, a chance to step off the treadmill and figure out what I actually wanted. Every conversation we had about the future ended in shouting matches, each one leaving me more frustrated than the last. Why couldn't he see how suffocating his expectations felt? How could he not understand that I needed space to breathe? And then there was Sophia. She always seemed to glide through life effortlessly, collecting accolades and privileges without ever having to fight for them. That third-floor bedroom? I'd begged for it years before she even knew what she wanted. But when I asked, the answer was always no. When she got it, I was furious. Who wouldn't be? It felt like yet another example of how everyone prioritized her over me. Now, looking back, I wonder if my anger showed in ways I didn't realize. Did I lash out at her in subtle ways, comments, silences, dismissals, that made her feel threatened? Could my jealousy have planted seeds of fear in her mind? The possibility gnaws at me, eating away at whatever scraps of peace I've managed to cling to. Before finding Sophia's diary, my nightmares were fragmented and vague, disjointed images that faded as soon as I woke up. But now, they're razor-sharp, almost cinematic in their clarity. In them, I'm standing over Karen and Michael's bed, gripping something heavy in my hands. Their faces contort with terror as they realize what's about to happen. I raise the object above my head, watching as light glints off its surface. Then, nothing. I wake up screaming, drenched in sweat, my heart pounding like a war drum. Are these memories trying to surface? Or is my subconscious twisting Sophia's accusations into something monstrous? Either way, they feel real when I'm trapped inside them. The weight of the weapon crushes me, not just physically, but emotionally. Each time I wake up, I'm left wondering, am I remembering something I've buried? Or am I inventing horrors based on guilt and paranoia? Dr. Patel tried to help me make sense of it once. Dreams aren't always literal, she said gently. They can symbolize unresolved emotions, fear, anger, regret. What do you think yours might represent? I didn't have an answer. How could I, when the line between reality and imagination feels so blurred? All I know is that these nightmares haunt me every night, forcing me to confront possibilities I'd rather ignore. The question haunts me constantly, what if Sophia was right? What if I truly am the person she feared, the one capable of destroying everything? The thought terrifies me, not because I believe it, but because I can't prove otherwise. Memories of that time are hazy at best, distorted by trauma and denial. Did I say or do something that justified her suspicions? Or did she misinterpret innocent actions, twisting them into something sinister? Sometimes, I imagine alternate versions of that night. In one, I'm the villain, angry, resentful, lashing out at the people who stifled my freedom. In another, I'm the victim, caught in a web of misunderstandings and misplaced blame. Neither version brings comfort, both leave me feeling hollow. Guilt consumes me either way. If Sophia was right, then I failed her in the worst possible way, by being blind to her pain and feeding her paranoia. If she was wrong, then maybe I failed myself. Maybe I let fear and frustration shape my behavior in ways I'll never fully understand. Either way, the weight of responsibility is unbearable. That photograph keeps coming back to me, the image of Sophia smiling brightly, arm in arm with a girl I don't recognize. On the back, written in her handwriting, are two words, my secret. Who was this girl? And why did Sophia consider her such a vital part of her life? I've combed through old photos and social media profiles, searching for any trace of her, but so far, nothing has surfaced. It's like she doesn't exist, or didn't exist beyond the confines of Sophia's world. Could she have been involved somehow? Was she the reason Sophia felt so betrayed, so driven to protect our parents at any cost? Or was she simply a friend caught in the crossfire of Sophia's unraveling? The unanswered questions pile up, each one heavier than the last. Without knowing more, I can't piece together the full picture. But maybe that's the point. Maybe some truths are meant to remain hidden, buried beneath layers of doubt and half-remembered dreams. Days blur together now, marked only by the constant ache in my chest. Closure feels impossible, not just because the truth eludes me, but because I'm not sure I want to find it. Would knowing make things better? Or would it only confirm my worst fears? Therapy helps sometimes, though Dr. Patel reminds me often that healing isn't linear. You're carrying a lot of weight, she says. It's okay to take your time unpacking it. But taking time doesn't mean escaping the burden. Every day, I wake up wondering, who am I really? What am I capable of? The questions follow me everywhere, whispering in my ear, pulling me back into the labyrinth of my own mind. Even now, as I sit here writing this, I don't know what really happened that night. Did Sophia kill our parents because she believed she was protecting them from me? Or am I the person she feared, the one she thought capable of such horror? Maybe I'm both victim and villain, caught in a web of memories I can't untangle. All I can do is live with the questions, carry the weight of them day by day, and hope that someday, somehow, I'll find a way to make peace with the uncertainty. Until then, I'm stuck in limbo, wondering who I really am and what I'm capable of. Life moves forward, though it often feels like I'm standing still. Days pass in a haze of monotony, punctuated by moments of sharp clarity when the past crashes into the present. I live in the same house now, though it barely resembles the home we once knew. The walls are stripped bare, the furniture rearranged to erase any trace of what happened here. But no matter how many times I repaint or redecorate, the echoes remain, ghosts trapped between floorboards and whispers lingering in empty hallways. Work has become my anchor, a way to drown out the noise in my head. I spend hours buried in spreadsheets and reports, losing myself in numbers because they're easier to understand than people. My coworkers think I'm quiet, maybe a little distant, but they don't ask questions. They don't know about the sleepless nights or the dreams that leave me gasping for air. They don't see the cracks running through the surface of my carefully constructed facade. Sometimes, I wonder if anyone would notice if I disappeared. Would they care? Would they even remember me? These thoughts creep in during quiet moments, gnawing at the edges of my mind until I force them away. It's not healthy, I know. But neither is pretending everything is fine when it's so clearly not. Still, there are flashes of light amid the darkness. A phone call from an old friend. A sunset that paints the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Moments when I catch myself smiling, not out of obligation, but because something genuinely touches me. Those moments remind me that life goes on, even when it feels impossible to keep going. But always, the questions linger. Who was I then? Who am I now? And will I ever find a way to reconcile the two? It came unexpectedly, a letter slipped under my door one rainy afternoon. No return address, no signature. Just a single sheet of paper folded neatly in half. My hands trembled as I opened it, bracing myself for whatever secrets it might hold. Inside was a photograph. Not the one of Sophia and the mysterious girl, but another taken years earlier. In it, the four of us stood together, Karen, Michael, Sophia, and me, smiling brightly against the backdrop of a summer picnic. Behind us, the lake shimmered under the sun, its surface dotted with sailboats and laughter. We looked happy. Whole. On the back of the photo, someone had written, "Remember who you were before the world broke you." Who sent it? Was it the girl from Sophia's diary, reaching out across time and distance to offer some semblance of closure? Or was it simply a cruel joke, designed to torment me further? I'll never know. What mattered was the effect it had, a spark of recognition, a reminder of a version of myself I'd almost forgotten. I spent hours staring at the image, tracing the outlines of our faces with trembling fingers. Back then, we were just a family, flawed, yes, but trying our best. Sophia hadn't yet withdrawn into herself, Karen and Michael weren't yet consumed by arguments, and I hadn't yet let resentment harden into bitterness. The note forced me to confront a question I'd avoided for too long: could things have turned out differently? If we'd been more patient, more open, more willing to listen, would we still be here today? In the weeks following the letter, I found myself drawn to the attic, a space untouched since the tragedy. Boxes upon boxes lined the walls, each one filled with fragments of our lives. Old photo albums, school projects, holiday decorations, all relics of a time when hope still burned bright. Among the clutter, I discovered Sophia's sketchbooks. Pages upon pages of intricate drawings spilled forth, capturing worlds both real and imagined. Some depicted scenes from our childhood, lazy afternoons in the backyard, road trips packed with snacks and sing-alongs. Others ventured into darker territory, shadowy figures lurking in corners, eyes wide with fear, hands reaching out for help. Her art told a story words never could, one of longing, despair, and ultimately, love. Despite everything, she cared deeply about us. She wanted to protect us, even if her methods were misguided. Even if her fears stemmed from misunderstandings and paranoia. As I flipped through the pages, tears streaming down my face, I realized something important. Sophia wasn't just a victim of circumstance. She was also a creator, a dreamer, someone who dared to imagine a better future even as hers unraveled. And in honoring her memory, I owed it to her, and to myself, to do the same. I decided to frame some of her sketches, hanging them throughout the house. Each one served as a reminder of who she was beneath the anger and pain. Of who we were before everything fell apart. One night, unable to sleep, I wandered into Sophia's old room. The loose floorboard where I'd found her diary remained slightly raised, a silent testament to the secrets hidden within. I knelt down and pried it loose again, half expecting to find nothing but dust. Instead, I uncovered a small wooden box. Inside, nestled among scraps of paper and faded ribbons, lay a key, the same brass key mentioned in her diary. My breath caught in my throat as I held it up to the light, turning it over in my hand. What did it unlock? A drawer? A safe? Or something symbolic, a metaphorical door to truths I wasn't ready to face? I didn't try to use it. Instead, I placed it on my bedside table, where it sat gleaming in the moonlight. Maybe someday I'd summon the courage to follow wherever it led. For now, though, it remained a mystery, one last fragment of Sophia waiting to be understood. That night, as I drifted off to sleep, I dreamed of her. She stood outside Karen and Michael's bedroom door, clutching the knife tightly in her hands. Her eyes met mine, filled with sorrow rather than rage. "You'll figure it out," she whispered before vanishing into the shadows. When I woke, sunlight streamed through the window, casting golden beams across the room. The key sat where I'd left it, glinting softly in the morning light. I picked it up, holding it close to my chest. Maybe the truth wasn't meant to be found all at once. Maybe it was enough to keep searching, to keep hoping that somewhere, somehow, the pieces would fall into place. And so, I carried on, step by uncertain step, carrying the weight of what I knew and the promise of what I might yet discover.